Am I the a-hole for telling my cousin that she's the reason my husband and I have reconsidered adoption? I, 33 female, have had fertility issues for the past couple of years with my husband, 35 male. We went through with consultations, and while we had very promising results for treatment, the cost did give us pause. It wasn't that we couldn't afford it. We just weren't at the point yet where we were willing to pay. I discussed it with my husband and we were both fine with the idea of adopting. My cousin Tiffany, 25 female, is adopted, and she supported our choice in looking into it. However, this was a couple of years back. And during that time, Tiffany was reunited with her birth parents, and she's been acting pretty hurtful to my aunt and uncle since then. She keeps making posts about how happy she is to know where she comes from, and is happy about being reunited with her real family. She even talked about having her birth father walk her down the aisle as a chance to make up for lost time. Obviously, my uncle was very hurt about this, but when he voiced it, Tiffany got defensive. She called my uncle selfish, how this was about her, and that he knew what he signed up for when raising someone else's kid. Then before the pandemic hit, Tiffany moved closer to where her bi mother lived, so they could make up for lost time. And Tiffany kept making post after post about all the fun she was having meeting relatives, and how she called/video chatted with each of her bi parents multiple times a week. Meanwhile, she barely texted back my uncle and aunt once a month. I could tell how heartbroken my aunt and uncle were. They tried to give Tiffany her space, and a few times they said anything, she accused them of being selfish and unsupportive. I think the biggest thing that broke them was when Tiffany promised to come by for my aunt's birthday. COVID restrictions were lifted, and was even given the money to travel to them, but then never showed up. She called literally the day before to say that her bi mom had an emergency, so she wasn't going to make it, but didn't give back the money. I am completely disgusted by Tiffany's behavior. And while I haven't completely ruled out adoption entirely, I did want to give medical-assisted conception a try. My husband supported this, and we are now currently expecting. After we made our announcement, Tiffany messaged me asking why I would spend thousands on creating a child when I could help one who already existed. I tried to play it off, but Tiffany kept pressing, and calling me a bad person when there are so many children who desperately need a home and overpopulation. It got to the point where she was pissing me off, and I just came clean and said that her behavior towards the people who loved and raised her was the reason. Tiffany got really upset, but I didn't care. However, her parents are now starting to say that I was wrong, so am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I'll say it loudly every time. If you insist on pushing people past the polite answer, you may get an answer you don't like. You have only yourself to blame if the truth hurts you then. Agreed. Not the a-hole. People need to learn to read a room. And if you keep pushing for a different answer than the one given, you need to be prepared to have some hard truths tossed in your face. 99% of the time when people are being polite and giving vague answers, it's for your own good, and just go with that. Seriously, when people learn that you stick your head in the lion's mouth, you can't expect them to pretend to be vegan. Not the a-hole. Your cousin is actually horrific. I'm adopted, and I would never, ever, even ever pull some crap like this. I'm sorry that she's such a selfish person, that she soured the idea of adoption for you. This was my thought. I feel really bad that adoption is tainted for them because it can be a wonderful thing. Just like having your own biological child, things can go wrong. But that doesn't mean it's always gonna be horrible. Still definitely not the a-hole. And I'm sorry they have to deal with a family member like this. Not the a-hole. Even though it wasn't a nice thing to say, you're still right. It's the truth. Why would you want to adopt a kid if they could end up like her? She's ungrateful and selfish. She abandoned a set of parents who love her and gave her a good life all these years for some people she barely knows, just because they're her real parents. I think her real parents are the ones who raised her and taught her everything she knows. She doesn't know her bio parents, and they could easily be a part of a cannibal cult. You were definitely in the right to say what you said. I'm wishing you good luck with the fertility situation. I'm hoping you're able to have a healthy child or adopt one who will love you forever. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to raise my new sibling? I am a 24-year-old woman who just finished my bachelor's degree and started my first professional job. I had a rough childhood growing up. My father was an alcoholic, and my mother didn't really want to be a mom, and she was out partying all of the time. My sister is 16 now, and I feel like she's my kid. We were left alone for days, and even weeks at a time when I was growing up. My sister was much younger than me, so I took over the role of being a parent to her. I was the one who washed her hair and helped her with her homework and held her when she cried and made sure she had food to eat. My parents never did any of that for us. When I was 16, something happened at my parents' house that made me fear for both my safety and my sister's safety, so I moved out and took her with me. My parents didn't care. I got 2 part-time jobs, went to school, and raised my sister the best I could. We were really poor, but I would have given my life for her, still would, and she's a really good kid. A few years ago, my father died, and my mom remarried. The new husband is pretty much a carbon copy of my father. After my father's death, my mom reached out to me for the first time in years, and she said she wanted to be back in my sister's life. I didn't really want to, but my sister wanted to, so I did it for her. At first it was okay, but my mom is back into D's, and her new husband is just as bad if not worse. The problem is my mom and her new husband had a little girl. She is 6 months old now, and apparently they're doing the same things that she and my dad did with me and my sister, leaving her alone for hours at a time. I was not aware of this, but I have to say I'm not surprised. Another relative reported her to CPS, and now they need to find a temporary home for my half-sister or she's going to be put in foster care. My mom suggested me, but I said I didn't want to raise another one of her kids. I understand that she's my half-sister, but I have pretty much raised myself and my sister, and I'm just tired. I am finally looking at a future where my sister will be going to college in 2 years, and I will finally have a life of my own. I have sacrificed so much for my sister, and I don't regret that at all. But I just want to have a life where I can be lazy for a bit if I want, and I can focus on just myself, instead of constantly caring for another human being. I've never had that chance before. My mom is livid, and saying that I'm a horrible person for not taking in my half-sister. She says it will be temporary until she gets her life cleaned up. But this woman has never had her life in order. I know if I take my half-sister, I will be raising yet another child, and I won't have a chance to live a life of my own until I'm over 40. I do feel awful about my half-sister ending up in foster care, and I do want to be a part of her life. I just don't want to be a parent to her. Am I the a-hole for saying no? Edited to add, I did try to shelter my other sister as much as possible about what was going on in our home. She was 7.5 when we moved out, so she doesn't remember a lot about what happened, and we weren't in contact with our mother until 2019. So I just kind of brushed off her questions and said that our parents weren't mentally well, and I thought we would be better on our own. I was really hopeful that things had changed, but I still kept a really close eye on what kind of contact I allowed them to have. I've supervised every in-person interaction they've had, for example. I did talk to her tonight and gave her the whole truth, and while she was upset to learn it, she definitely understands a lot more about what happened, and why we're not going to have contact with our mother anymore. As for the relative who reported her to CPS, she is not in the position to take on a baby due to a chronic health condition that is growing progressively worse. Not an a-hole. I love how she calls you horrible when she's the one not fit to be a parent. That is not your responsibility. You've already done more than enough. It's time to live your life. You probably should go back to no contact though. I feel like she's going to start bothering you about this. This pretty much sums up her relationship with me for most of my life. She never takes responsibility for anything, and it seriously drives me crazy. I've tried to shield my sister as much as I could from this mess, to the point that I omitted a lot of things that happened, and she can't remember since she was little when I moved out and took her with me. But we've sat down for a long talk, and I think she understands now why I was reluctant to get back in contact with our mother. I know she's upset about the situation, but I think she finally sees why I went no contact for years, and why it's a good idea to go back to that from now on. Maybe someday our mother will get her act together. I doubt it. But until then, no contact is the best and healthiest option. Your half-sister is young and cute enough to be adopted. Tell your mom to give her up since she wants another person to raise her. You are not a holoby. Parentification is a form of mistreatment, in which a child is forced to take on a parental role for their sibling. Your childhood was stolen from you, and now you're facing the prospect of having to relieve that trauma. You've shouldered a heavy burden for the better part of your life, and it's okay to feel that you can't do it all over again. After having had a role of primary provider and caregiver placed on you for so long, nobody can reasonably blame you for finally taking time to focus on your own emotional well-being. Your half-sister has been placed in a horrible situation, but putting yourself in another one wouldn't be healthy for either of you. Thank you. I really needed to read this. I haven't had a chance to go to therapy or work on my emotional baggage. I plan to in the future now that I have benefits and a steady income. But just having someone tell me that it's understandable to feel like I do Does make me feel like less of an awful person. Not a-hole. If it helps you to know this, a baby going into foster care with a chronically unfit parent is far more likely to be available for adoption while still young than that child would be if you take that baby first as family foster care. If you take the baby, the state kind of assumes that you are willing to do this as the largely unpaid babysitter for your mother for extended periods of time if and until she ever gets herself straight. If there are no family foster care options available, and the child goes directly into foster care, she is most likely to be placed with a family who is willing to do foster to adopt and is hoping to do foster to adopt. And the incentive on the part of the state is to follow the actual rules and guidelines for how long they have to make a permanent placement plan for this child. Which means, long story short, if you refuse to take the baby, she's far more likely to be adopted by another family. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents they should watch my brother if they won't replace the things he destroyed? I'm 16 female. I have a Nintendo Switch and a good few games and cartridge instead of installed on it because I bought it secondhand. Animal Crossing, Mario Kart, Mario Party, Just Dance 2020, and a few others. I also have a 2.5-year-old brother who is obsessed with the toilet, flushing it every chance he gets. Sometimes he puts some tissue down it to watch it go down. You can probably already tell where this is going. This morning, he was being really quiet, but the toilet was still flushing every few minutes, and he was giggling every few minutes, so we assumed he was fine and just playing with the toilet again. So, he came into the sitting room from the bathroom. Note, we live in a bungalow, but it's quite big, and said, "Opie, look," and made me follow him to the bathroom, where the ACNH, Mario Kart, and Just Dance cases were empty the bathroom floor. I immediately asked him where he went, and he pointed at the toilet and grinned. I went to my parents. Dad was working, work from home, and my mom was cooking dinner, and said he's just flushed my games down the toilet, one of which being my favorite. My mom just called him in and said that was wrong and tried not to do it again and sent him to go play again. When I asked what about the games I've lost, my dad spoke up and suggested I save to get them back, and that they can't afford to replace them for me. I said in response to that, you should watch Brother better than if you weren't going to bother replacing what is ruined. They think I'm the a-hole for this, and I've been in my room sulking all day and being sad that I can't play Animal Crossing and won't get a new one anytime soon. Am I the a-hole? Not an a-hole. Flush your brother down the toilet, then tell your parents they should save up for a new one since you can't afford to replace him right now. Lol, do you have a younger sibling, and was this something you fantasized about in the past? I'm so mad I want to downvote you, but you made me laugh. Dang it. Not an a-hole. Also, I'd refuse to watch him from this point on. Not your problem. Your parents are massive a-holes here. How often do they make you watch him? Do they pay you to watch them? Watching your brother is not your responsibility. Also, keep your bedroom door locked to keep him out even if you're not in your room. Also, don't leave your stuff around the house for him to get a hold of. I'd show them your post so they can read it, and the replies that will inevitably state that they are a-holes. They don't make me watch him very often, usually only once or twice a day. Since the pandemic started, they ask me to watch him while they go to the shop since he won't put a mask on for longer than half an hour yet. And neither parent drives, so it's 2 buses and an hour grocery run. I also can't lock my bedroom door. There's no key. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my nephew in for a few days to give my sister a break? My sister's eldest son is 20 and has special needs. He's mentally and physically disabled, so everything needs to be done for him, including helping him walk around. Now that honestly wouldn't be a problem for me, 33 male, but the issue is his behavior. Because my sister gives him everything, he is very spoiled. He's practically glued to his tablet and watches videos all day long. Even when it's time to eat, change him, or get ready for bed, he will throw the biggest tantrums and throws things around until he gets his tablet back. Behaves awfully with my kids and has made my eldest cry on a couple occasions. Another major problem is on many occasions he will start watching adult stuffs on his tablet at full volume, even at family gatherings. It's happened a few times at my own house in front of my kids, 9 male and 6 female. And yet, another tantrum if you try to get him to watch something else. My sister claims she tries to put parental controls on his tablet, but he knows how to disable it. For these reasons, my family and I don't visit. You can see why I don't want to take on the responsibility of having him stay here with us for a few days, just because my sister says she and her husband need a break for a few days. They could get a caretaker for him if they wanted to, but they're too proud for that. I love my nephew, and physically taking care of him wouldn't be the problem. But I don't want him in my home with the way he behaves and makes my kids uncomfortable. Now my sister keeps saying I'm being a terrible brother/uncle who could be doing her a huge favor helping out with him. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You need to put your own children first. If they're able to afford a professional carer, then that should be what they do. It's not fair to place that pressure on family members. There are also facilities that will offer respite stays for 2 weeks to 30 days depending on their policy. You all should hold your ground. It's unfair to blame this on anyone in the family, but it's not their fault they need a break as it sounds complicated. Worsened by their choices or not, it's still a tough spot. Not the a-hole. Edited to include that COVID policies might complicate this now depending on your location status, but it is normally available. Not the a-hole. Especially because of the way he acts around the kids. It's completely understandable you don't want that in your home. The adult videos thing is so gross too. It really is. It has become more of a problem recently. Now it doesn't matter where they are, he will absolutely watch without a care. Update. Wife 36 female wanted open marriage. After I-38 male started dating, she wants to add more rules. What would you do in my position? Original post. 2.5 years ago, my wife Sarah 36 female asked me to open our marriage. She strongly implied the alternative was divorce. After thinking it through, I said yes, primarily because we do have 2 children. I worked long hours, and divorce sounded horrible. So I set up some ground rules. Not bringing dates into our house, no dating mutual friends, acquaintances, family members, colleagues, keeping things private. For the next 2 years, I focused on my job and on my kids. I worked long hours. Little free time I had, I devoted to my kids. I didn't have the time for dating, so I wasn't even trying. I moved to another room because the thought of Sarah sleeping with another man than sleeping in my bed felt horrible. Our relationship became purely transactional. We became partners at raising kids. I didn't want to know anything about her intimate life. This summer, I managed to fulfill my financial goals. I do not have any debt whatsoever. Both of my kids have enough money in their college fund, and all I have to do is to keep adding some savings every month into the fund I made for their first home deposits. So I did some math and decided to cut my work from 74 hours to just 30 per week. Sarah wanted to get indebted again to buy another house and a new car. I said no. I used my free time to finally have a vacation I really needed. Took my older son with me to tour to the US together. Did some renovation work in our house, turned basement into a man cave. Starting working out, play sports, leading a healthier life. Then I actually started trying to land a date. For me, just hooking up with somebody is not my thing. I want to at least be a friend before that. To go out together, watch movies, have fun, and be intimate. So I dated a couple of women and found a Jane with whom I clicked. With Jane, I was going out to concerts, art galleries, comic cons, movies, and we would boink too. Sarah wanted to talk about my dates. I said no. Then I caught Sarah snooping through my phone and we had a very strongly worded argument. Now Sarah wants to update the terms of our open marriage. She wants us to repair our marriage by going to the counselor. She wants us to sleep in the same room, to go outside, and have fun together. Our outside of marriage relationships are to be strictly physical and nothing else, and we are to talk about our partners. I told her that I'm content with the situation as it is, and I don't mind if she finds a partner to go out with. I encouraged her too, and I don't want to talk about our partners. She's holding her ground. At this point, I'm split between trying to fix our marriage and handing her the divorce papers. I need an advice, guys. P.S. I just wanted to add that I only started working 74 hours a week after she decided to open our marriage. Before that, I was working around 50 hours a week. Wasn't spending my time at bars and clubs either. Helped with chores as much as I could, and I was being home and available every weekend. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Just get a divorce already. They've been divorced, without the paperwork or the physical distance. They've both been emotionally checked out for years. You two didn't open your marriage. You ended your marriage 2.5 years ago to become roommates and co-parents. That's all the two of you are now, but neither of you seemed to care about that until you got a girlfriend. You didn't find a partner, you found a relationship. That scares the heck out of your wife because she's reading the writing on a wall. That's exactly what happened. His wife wanted partners and never thought he would find a girlfriend. With all the hours he was working, she probably didn't expect him to find a partner either. Now that he's opened up his side finally, she's unhappy/jealous. Should have divorced her when she wanted to open up the marriage. Her plan was for her to fool around, not you finding a girlfriend. I'm really glad that I didn't divorce at that point. I grew up in a very poor family, had a smarts but couldn't afford a college. Had to struggle from the beginning to actually make it. And I don't want my kids to have to go through that. By staying in the marriage, I could keep working hard while still seeing my kids. And I could save enough to give them a chance in life with free college and going to save for their deposits as well. So I actually do not have any regrets about that decision. I understand that part, and good for you for recognizing the cost of divorce. Heck of a job by you to put your kids and their security first. Another part of putting your kids first is modeling healthy adult relationships. If you and your wife are peaceful at home and the kids are relatively in the dark about your bedroom life, then fine. But I have my doubts, especially now that your wife is not the only one dating. If the home starts to become tense and a battleground, divorce eventually becomes a kindness to give those kids. Boys figured out something was off when we started sleeping in separate rooms, but I just couldn't keep sleeping with her. Still, up to this point, it wasn't a tense home. My only regret, not being able to spend more time with my kids. But hey, can't have it all. In turn, they will never know what student that is. Now, this home is turning into tense battleground, and that's something I do not want for my children. Your wife is a hypocrite. You are emotionally numbed out. You agreed to open up the marriage upon her request, which was a really terrible idea. That would have been the time to do the work you both should have done to fix this. Marriages get stale from time to time. She needed to turn towards you, not put her emotional energy into new dick. Sorry about a crass language. I don't mean any disrespect. But you need a wake-up call. You do not have a marriage. It's a business arrangement now. So what's the point? Pretty sure you know the answer. Good luck, OP, and I hope you find what you're looking for. Your wife is a hypocrite. You are emotionally numbed out. Yeah, recently I noticed that too. Things which used to drive an emotional response from me are now leaving me feeling nothing. My friend died. I went to his funeral at all and didn't feel anything. Just felt like crap for not feeling anything. Nobody notices because I act the emotional responses. Have been planning to see a therapist. Thank you. This isn't a marriage. You two are nothing other than partners in the business of your family and have been since she decided to open the marriage like that. Credit to you for the work you've done. And I'm sure that having reliable support at home for the kids is why you were able to work 74 hours a week. But this isn't a romantic partnership and seems to have not been for a while. Also, I totally understand the line you've drawn around not wanting to hear from your wife about it. She wanted to open a relationship? You let it happen. She wants to turn it into a shared kink? Nope. 14 hours Monday to Friday, 4 hours Saturday. I couldn't pull that off without her taking care of most chores and kids. Yes, by keeping things private, we became just partners in business. I don't care about my business partner's for life. Now for the update. Me and my wife Sarah had 2 sessions with a couples counselor. Counselor was being very dedicated and professional. However, Sarah kept making demands which felt very unreasonable and unfair. She wants to keep an open relationship, which is only about the physical act. She doesn't want to find a job and keep working. She wants us to buy a new house. And every variation, she stubbornly wasn't to have 2 out of 3 of these things. Today during the counseling, she threatened divorce. After counseling, she said counselor was taking my side and wanted to change to another counselor. Although I think counselor was just trying to be fair and find a compromise. I had a talk with a lawyer and started divorce proceedings. She will get the papers in a couple of days. I will give her 2 months to start earning on her own. After that, I'm not giving any money whatsoever to her anymore. Divorce is definitely your best option. Good luck. Big time. When I read his original post, it was very clear that OP's wife was only concerned with her own wants, not what is best for their family. I'm glad he's putting his foot down on this. Some people truly believe the grass is greener, not realizing it's green where nurtured. My grandpa used to always say the grass is always greener, but you still gotta mow the damn lawn. Good for you. I don't see what you got out of the relationship at this point. She seemed like a gold digger, to be honest. Now with Jane, don't rush into anything, I would say. Take things one step at a time. Get to know each other well before either of you get hurt or you end up in another failed relationship/marriage. She wants and wants and wants. Nowhere did I see anything like she realized what was going to happen. That's because she doesn't care. She's using him. Last story. Update. Am I the a-hole for being upset my wife, we're currently separated, didn't tell me she was diagnosed with cancer? Original post. My parents were well off and worked hard, but they were neglectful towards me. By the time I was 10, they decided I didn't need a nanny anymore and then I didn't have parental figures. They spent all of their time and energy at work and didn't have time for me at all. When I met my wife, she was a vibrant, intelligent, caring woman. She would give you the shirt off her back. We spent hours and hours together talking about everything and anything. But it slowly died down. She would come home from work, crawl immediately into bed and watch TikToks for the next 3 hours. She wouldn't engage, would barely do anything. I only did chores sometimes and ended up paying for someone to do her share. She would always say she's tired and then stay up all night sometimes or sleep for 18 hours. It was awful to see her glued to her phone or her computer instead of engaging with me. So I asked for separation. It was really hard because she cried and begged me not to. And I still loved her, but being with her was like a flashback to my parents. We both knew that separations basically always end in divorce. An old friend of my wife's recently reached out to me and cussed me out. She told me that my wife had cancer and how dare I leave her during a tough time. I had no idea she had cancer. I asked my wife why she hid it from me, and she said that I was divorcing her and she didn't want to guilt trip me to staying or be manipulative. I asked her how long she had known. She found out 3 weeks after we separated. I told her she should have told me. I noticed her hair seemed thinner and she just seemed frailer overall, but she brushed it off as just stress. Honestly, I'm really upset that she didn't tell me. Do I have a right to be? Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Okay, I'm getting a super weird vibe from the part where you compare your probably sick and stressed partner to your absent parents. But whatever. You're the a-hole. You told her that you could not live with the way she was. Whether she was being lazy or stressed or had cancer back then too, you didn't want to take over that care for her. So why would she tell you? She needs help and care, but you already told her with your actions that it is not something you wish to do. That weirded me out a bit. I mean, she kept telling you that she was just stressed, and you couldn't even say, I don't know, you seem different. Can I help you with anything? Maybe you should see a different doctor. I'm worried about you. Nothing? He did though. He said he made her go to the doctor many times, and they found nothing wrong, and the wife refused to go again. What else should he have done? Bruh, my wife essentially underwent 180 physically and emotionally. Huge red flag. I pushed her to go to the doctor. They said she was just lazy. WTF? Somehow this correlates to my absentee parents. You should have gone to therapy for that already. Anyway, so I left her. Good. She deserves better. The wife's condition to me sounds way more like mental illness than physical ones. Once you rule out a physical cause, your next step should have been psychiatry. Of course, any doctor says someone is lazy isn't worth listening to in my opinion. Sounds like they may missed the cancer when it first started. Edit. Only now did her hair start to thin and she looked weak. She looked obviously ill. For 3 years before that, she wouldn't get out of bed and alternatively sleep through the weekend and stay up on weekdays. I did all of this chores, but she felt guilty and hired a housekeeper for cleaning. I did all of the cooking. What I saw was a profound disinterest in me. She didn't want to do anything with me. She wouldn't go on walk with me. She wouldn't go out. She would just read a book or just lie in bed watching TikToks. Her daily screen time was 14 to 16 hours. I made doctor's appointments. I cooked food. I tried to get her up. At some point, she just wouldn't even entertain going to the doctor. After years of her telling me that there was nothing wrong with her, doctors saying she was lazy, and blood tests showing no issues and still lying in bed, I was tired. If we had known that her body was shutting down, of course I wouldn't have left. I just wished she actually went to the appointments I had set up before I asked for a separation. I am going to help her any way I can. Now for the update. I talked to my wife. I called her and asked if she wanted to talk. She said okay. When I came over, I noticed that nobody has been over in at least a few weeks. My wife is a clean person, so there wasn't a mess, but it was clear that she was doing it on her own. I apologized for everything. I asked her why she didn't tell me about the cancer. She said that she felt guilty because she thought we would go through all the effort and find out she was just lazy, and I would resent her. Then she thought when we separated that she could just go to a few appointments to show she was physically fine, but try to change on her own to stop being lazy. Then she found out that she had cancer. She felt really bad because she hadn't gone to any appointments I had made. She felt guilty because she knew I would come back if I knew, and she didn't want me to sacrifice for her when she had dismissed my concerns for years. She sobbed and said that she really felt like she was just being lazy and tired like before. I asked her what she was talking about. A few times during school, she had these intense periods of being really tired and unable to get out of bed. Her parents took her to a doctor, but there was nothing wrong. It wasn't caused by anxiety and she didn't feel depressed, just incredibly physically tired. Her parents and doctor dismissed it as laziness. I don't like her parents. I said it didn't sound like laziness. It sounded like a real medical issue. I'm going to help her figure it out, but to me, it sounded like an autoimmune disease or flare-up. I told her that I always believe her. I believed her when she said she was just lazy after 3 years of trying to get her to a doctor. And I would have believed her if she had been honest with me and told me about what she went through as a kid. She just kept sobbing, and I comforted her. After she cried, I checked her fridge for food. There were only a couple of things in the fridge, including some frozen food I had dropped off before. I asked if she wanted me to go grocery shopping or come over to my apartment for some food. She chose my apartment. I grabbed a few things for her and I took a laundry basket of dirty clothes to wash. At my apartment, I drew her a bath and cooked dinner for us. She didn't have any clean pajamas, so she wore mine. Then we had dinner. She kept saying thank you and I told her she didn't have to thank me. She's my wife. Of course I'll take care of her through cancer. She said she made me do all of the chores before too, and she didn't want me to go through that again. I told her that she was sick and tired, and I can do everything again if she stays honest with me about how she feels and doesn't dismiss it as her being lazy. We ended up cuddling, and she fell asleep pretty quickly. She's been asleep and awake through today and yesterday. She's been a bit clingy to me, and she looks a lot more comfortable. She's probably going to stay in my apartment, so we'll have to figure out how to break the lease on hers. I'm not going to divorce or abandon her. She needs a lot of support. Damn, being dismissed and being told she's just lazy did a real number on her. Poor woman dismisses herself so no one else does. I'm glad you stuck with her and got her to talk about it. It must have been so difficult for both of you. Hopefully she'll enter therapy and work through that damage she internalized. She was so afraid of being rejected and called lazy that she tried to go through cancer alone. Stupid parents. And the doctors, who shrugged and called her lazy. Reddit lost its collective mind in your last post, but you did nothing wrong, and you're doing everything right. Good job, dude. OP, has her doctor checked her for chronic fatigue syndrome? That's a real thing, in addition to her most recent cancer diagnosis. Hope she recovers, and the two of you get back on track, if appropriate. My heart, thank you for the update. You are a great husband to her. I'm wishing you and your wife all the very best, in sickness and in health. Update. Am I the a-hole for no longer bringing dinner for my wife after she claimed I never cook? Original post. I work at a nice restaurant as a cook, and every day when I get off from work, I always cook dinner for my wife and our 2 kids, 8 male and 6 female, at a restaurant before coming home. The only time I don't cook for them are on weekends when I'm off, and that's when my wife does the cooking. We usually trade off who makes breakfast and lunch for the kids every other day, but for the week I'm always the one bringing home dinner. Weekends, we sometimes get together with friends and they come over to the house. My wife usually cooks, and I help set the table/clean afterwards. One of her friends, Stacy, asked how come I never do any of the cooking, and it is always on my wife all the time making meals for the kids, especially when I'm a cook myself. Instead of correcting her, my wife sort of laughed and went along with it, making jokes about, you know how it is. And Stacy laughed because her ex-husband was the same way. And then sort of ripped on me in a joking way, how I better buck up before I became an ex too. My wife just said, well, let's see if he actually listens and starts cooking for once. Joking about all the time I spend in the kitchen at work but won't do the same at home. It really ticked me off. I'm not the husband that just doesn't do anything after I'm home from work. I cook food for her and the kids at work. And on top of that, I make separate dishes for each of them, what she wants and what the kids want. All that after standing on my feet all day. We talked about it once they left, because I don't appreciate being told I'm not doing something she knows for a fact I do. She didn't want to apologize for it, because it was all just to be a funny joke. Even after telling her about how it hurt my feelings being put down like that. My wife said she felt like she has to go along with the joke so there wouldn't be any awkward vibes, whatever that means. But I said, fine, if she can't apologize for something that was mean just so she could laugh along with her friends, then I won't keep doing something she already claims I don't do. And for the past week, I've only brought home dinner for our kids. and she's had to make her own food. She's mad that I'm refusing to feed her over what happened, instead of letting it go. But I can't help but feel mad about being made fun of like that, when I'm busting my butt to provide for my family, and still making sure they have food on the table every evening. She just thinks I'm an a-hole for how I'm reacting, when she's already tired at the end of the day, but still having to make food for herself. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. Your wife missed a great opportunity to boast on you, all for acceptance by others who have nothing invested in your relationship. Not even to boast though would have felt nice, but at least say, hey, you're wrong, not just go along with it. As a stay-at-home mom who has a significant other who actually does things for himself and around the house, I've basically had this conversation before. All she had to say is, actually, I don't have that problem. He's a responsible adult and pulls his share. I don't get why she had to lie to keep it from being awkward. I'm sure it was awkward already. Not the a-hole. Your spouse is supposed to be your partner in everything in life. The person who always has your back like you always have theirs. She threw you directly under the bus for the sake of not creating waves with her friend. Then when you told her you didn't find her comments at all funny and quite hurtful that she let someone else believe you're a deadbeat, she blew you off. So, she can make her own dinner until she sincerely apologizes and acknowledges that your contribution to the family of cooking dinner during the week is important. I feel like it was an excuse to worry about making waves. I don't understand why actually cooks during the week would create an awkward moment. If anything, it's the opposite. If I was the friend complaining about my horrible ex-husband who never helped, and my friend lied to me about how she can relate because her husband doesn't contribute, I would be pretty angry to find out she actually has an amazing husband who always helps her out. Like, I would be a bit hurt that she decided to lie and act like she's dealing with the same crap I am, when in reality, her husband is doing a lot of work to help her out. Now for the update. At first, wasn't going to post an update, but since things have gotten better, why not? I didn't show my wife this post like some suggested until a few days later, but before that, she wanted to talk before bed. And she apologized for how she's been behaving with me, when she made those jokes and let her friends say things about me, then how she was acting afterwards. In reality, she knew she did wrong, but when I called her out, it made her defensive, and she realizes how she was acting like a child after knowing how much I do for our family. That's when I showed her the post and opened up about something that was mentioned by me in my comments. How it really hit a nerve for me, making it seem like I'm a lousy father/husband when my dad was exactly that as he abandoned me and my mom. She knows how important it is for me to be as involved as possible when our kids were born because I never wanted to be like him. So her making it seem like that's how I am brought up some feelings. Telling her this really made her feel like she messed up big time. She wouldn't stop apologizing. She promised she'd never put me down that way. And honestly, I think she's shown that she meant her apology. For a week, she wanted to be the one making dinner for everyone, so I'd have some time to relax after work. It was nice, but also missed making meals for my family. Cooking for my kids is my own way of expressing my love for them, so we're back to that as well. I feel like my wife has more than shown how sorry she is, and appreciates what I also do for this family. Last time we had lunch with her friend a few days ago on my day off, she even brought it up. As mad as I was when it happened, it's nice to see she's made an effort to make amends. The support I got from here was very sweet. Appreciate feeling heard when it felt like my wife wasn't at a time. I'm really glad things worked out for you regarding this. Cooking is definitely my way of showing love to those I care about as well. Keep being a great father, and continue what you do regarding your cooking. Thank you. My family always loved my cooking, so knowing they enjoy something I made on top of keeping them fed is always a nice reward for me. Glad to see another wonderful example of communication and empathy solving the base issue. It's great that your wife was able to understand the underlying reasons behind why her comments were so hurtful to you, since that will help her consider her words before responding in future instances. I think she did a very normal human thing, which is to try to sympathize with the person who's hurting around you by agreeing with her general complaints. It's understandable because you don't want to sound like you're gloating at a person in that situation, but it can also cast a negative shadow on the sad person's recovery. If your wife has trouble with that kind of thing, you could recommend to her that she paint her comments about you as proof that good men do exist out there, if her friends take the time to look for them. It makes you feel good, it makes your wife feel good, and it gives a sad friend hope for a future relationship, as compared to despairing that no man/woman will ever truly love me. I think this is a communication issue. The issue was resolved because the person in the wrong admitted they were wrong and genuinely apologized and made it up to the person they wronged. Oftentimes, things don't get resolved no matter how the two parties communicate because the one in the wrong doesn't want to admit they were wrong. Did she set the record straight with Stacy? Yes, she did. Good, because apologies behind closed doors are okay. But if her friends continue to make fun of you because you didn't set them straight, that's tough. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my son inconsiderate? I, 46 female, have twins, 19 males, and another son, 16 male. My youngest son loves to cook and bake. To him, it's a source of relaxation. Alfredo, burgers, pizza, you name it. Heck, even a whole cake he can make it. Everyone who's met him knows he's a fantastic cook. However, he prefers to only cook for himself and gets really annoyed when my twins walk in on him cooking and ask him to make them food as well. He'll end up doing it, but he does it very begrudgingly and usually gives them a much smaller portion than his own serving, which my twins don't like. They both have jobs and will sometimes use their job money to buy us all a little fast food, so they find it really upsetting how their younger brother never returns the favor by primarily cooking for himself. The other day, neither of my twins had class and weren't really in the mood for the food that we had in the house. My son came back from school and decided to make himself some banana pudding. When my twins asked for some as well, he told them they could just make it themselves and that the ingredients were all still there. My son put the banana pudding in the fridge and went to go take a shower while it was chilling. When he came back down, he saw that my twins had eaten it all, and this really upset him. When he told me about the situation, I confronted the twins, to which they said it was really rude for him to only make something for himself knowing that they were hungry as well. And like he said, he could always make some more. So I told my son that while they shouldn't have eaten his food, they were right, and he was very inconsiderate. My son replied that it's not fair how he gets back from school and is expected to make food for his older siblings, that they can just get a cookbook and learn how to make things for themselves. I told my son that if he's not going to cook for everybody, then he can't cook anymore. He's been pretty moody ever since. Obviously, his brothers shouldn't have eaten his food, but it takes no effort to just make a larger portion of the food he's cooking so that everybody can have it. My husband thinks I'm in the right, but I'm really not happy with how things are right now between my children. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I told my son that if he's not going to cook for everybody, then he can't cook anymore. You're the a-hole. You are not entitled to have your 16-year-old cook for the whole family every time he wants to cook. If this is a hobby that he enjoys, good for him. You and your other children are not an automatic beneficiary. And your twins eat all of his pudding? Major a-hole move. Did you make them make another batch to replace the one they ate? Or did you just let it slide and go on to punish 16-year-old? Give your head a shake. If you want him to cook for you, then maybe you should assign a night of the week that each of your kids be responsible to feed a family, whether it be cooking or bringing home food. Then it's fair. Yeah, or you could make them pay money if he cooks for them. I mean, if it was done in a fair and structured way like once a week, having him cook for everyone wouldn't be an unreasonable chore, given that they'll sometimes buy food and is using a provided kitchen and ingredients. But making it spontaneous and all-consuming, like make them something every time, it looks like she's just playing favorites. You're the a-hole. Why should your twins endlessly benefit from your 16-year-old's work? I hope he gets himself into a professional kitchen and thrives. He's not their servant. Are they doing his laundry? His other chores? Do they clean up the kitchen afterwards? That would be more equitable. What are they doing in return? Do you seriously think them buying something fast food is the same as all the work involved in making a meal? If he finds cooking and baking relaxing, he shouldn't do it professionally unless he really, really wants to. That's a good way to ruin a hobby. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents I don't want kids because I'm scared they will turn out like my brother? My older brother is unemployed, had almost always been unemployed, and has no intention to ever work. His life plan is to live off of our mother until she dies. Then our father, if he happens to live longer, then live off his inheritance. Or maybe he will try to mooch off of another relative. I don't know. Our parents have tried to get him to work. They did everything in their power to arrange him job positions where he didn't even have to interview. But no, he always comes up with an excuse to why that job is not good enough for him. He is my brother, so I love him of course, but at the same time, I'm ashamed of him, and with how his actions hurt our parents. I turned 30 this week, and we celebrated it with my family yesterday. My mom said she was 30 when she had me, and asked me when my husband and I will have kids. I told her I'm not sure if I'm up to the job. Raising children seems too difficult to me. She asked what I meant, and I told her that I don't think I would be able to properly parent a child, correct their behaviors, and deal with them possibly not living up to my expectations, which is not fair to the child either. She pressed further and my father joined in, acting like they don't understand what I mean, up until I told them that I'm afraid my child would turn out like my brother, for example, and I don't think I could deal with that. They got quiet for a second, and I saw that they finally understood what I meant. The problem was that, even though my brother was having a different conversation with one of our cousins, he heard what I said, looked at me, said nice, and walked out. Our parents said that I shouldn't have said what I said, even though they admit they pressured me to explain and understand my concerns, because it's already really hard to get my brother to come to family events, and now I made it even worse, and they want me to apologize to him. I didn't mean for him to hear that, and I feel bad. But seriously, he is a 34-year-old man refusing to get a job. I think it's time we stop cuddling him. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your brother is a non-functional mooch, unless there is something else going on. Your parents pressed the issue. By the way, they're enablers. It's ridiculous. My brother-in-law was also an unemployed mooch living with mommy from age 35 to 50. I told my husband that the brother-in-law is perfectly capable. Brother-in-law then met a gal who kicked his butt into shape, and he got a job and got married. The enabling is a real problem. Opie's parents did fail her brother, but the brother is at fault as well. It's a phenomenon called failure to launch, and Opie's parents are definitely enabling it by not pushing him out of the nest, so to speak. Not the a-hole. Pure and simple. Your life, your choice. Raising kids is a lot of work. I have 4, trust me. Worst thing for a child is having a parent that's not ready to commit the parent's life to raising a child. Now, if you want a child but simply are afraid of XYZ, let me comfort you. Every child is different. Your parents are enabling your brother, but that doesn't have to be you and your child. It's quite possible you won't have the same challenges with your child your parents have with your brother. Make no mistakes. There will be challenges. 99% chance they'll have their own unique twist in making your life interesting, however. I can concur. All 3 of the kids my parents raised turned out to be screwed up in completely different ways that are combated with completely different strategies. 2 out of 3 of us, despite facing a ton of challenges and having a lot wrong with us well into adulthood, have also found our own versions of success. One of us is a pseudo-Nazi who wriggled out of an arson charge, but part of parenting is accepting that your kid might turn out to be a bad person for reasons beyond your control. Not the a-hole. Is it the US? If so, there's a thing called eviction. Unless he's able to pay for his own food and place to live, he's not really doing anything useful. And I totally agree. Raising kids is a difficult thing to do. Same reason I don't have kids. I just don't want to take that burden. My brother made it clear in the past that if they kicked him out, he would just go to our maternal grandparents who would take care of him. Our parents didn't want to burden the grandparents, so they never attempted to stop providing for him. Then, our grandparents both died last year within a few months from each other. But now my parents believe he couldn't take care of himself and would just become homeless if they kicked him out. My dad especially said he couldn't live with that. He couldn't make his son homeless. I tried suggesting they tell him that they will cut him out of their will if he doesn't get a job. But my dad says that wouldn't work, because my brother would call his bluff.